Greetings, fellow slayers and newcomers alike. Today, we're going over the ultimate top 5 most underrated builds in Baldur's Gate 3. These are going to be builds that most people seem to look past or are generally just not talked about much in the community, as opposed to the plethora of meta builds available. These might not be the most insane builds in the game, but they can be perfectly viable if not made into something more special via gear or party composition. I want to thank my supporters. As always, this channel would not be possible without you. You all are absolute legends and it means everything to me. Now without further ado, let's get into it. Number 5. Druids in general. Druids in general are quite underrated while simultaneously being low-key overpowered. According to Larian Studios, the 1-year anniversary statistics for Baldur's Gate 3 revealed that Druids were the 3rd least chosen class in the game, which is kinda insane to me given that their spell list is so unique, but then again, that could be the very reason why some people don't use it, I suppose. Then you mix in wild shapes, so I guess it's a bit understandable. Nonetheless, the Druid is completely underrated because it can really do everything, and it can do those things quite well, from DPS to tanking to even support and healing. Not to mention it being one of the safest classes to solo honor mode, as your wild shape forms have their own separate health pools, essentially in a sense giving you more than 1 life during battle. Just keep in mind that extra damage past 0 on your wild shape will be applied to your normal form, so there is still potential to outright die. Druids can also conjure an army rivaling even the most vile of necromancers, and in Baldur's Gate 3 specifically, the Druid's army is probably the strongest one you can have. Any Druid can conjure all manner of elementals as well as dryads, which on their own summon a wood woad. On top of this, the Spore Druid can summon their own special versions of zombies, and then on top of that, you can still add minions like the Dance Macabre Fiends or us. This is yet another point that makes Druid underrated yet overpowered, and also makes it very viable for a solo honor mode run. The Circle of the Moon, the same subclass that Halsin uses, allows you to turn into a bear at only level 2, which is by far the strongest tank you can have in the early game. Also, remember that at level 5, Druids gain extra attack for their wild shapes so they can keep up with the melee characters while still having full spellcasting capabilities when in human form, not to mention having Shillelagh so they can still pack a decent melee if they need to. The Druid also has access to some of the coolest and most satisfying spells in the game, like Moonbeam, which you unlock only at level 3, up to our beloved Call Lightning, the brutal terrains like Spike Growth and Plant Growth, the massive Ice Storm, and even the Sunbeam, which is a 68 radiant damage laser. Needless to say, the DPS spells of the Druids are hard-hitting and definitive. The support capability of the Druid is akin to that of a Cleric, and you could even swap out your Cleric completely for a Druid. Do not tell Shadowheart I said that. While not the absolute best at healing, Druids will be able to not only keep themselves alive, but the party alive as well, especially after adding the healer gear. On top of that, the Druid has utility for almost any situation, from Long Strider and Enhanced Leap, to Gust of Wind, Hold Person, just throwing that in there, but they also have things like Hero's Feast for a full party and summons buff, and even Pass Without Trace for stealth parties. The Druid is truly a jack of all trades in every sense, and if you haven't tried it yet, what are you waiting for? Number 4. Way of the Four Elements Monk. Next up is by far the least popular subclass for Monk, Way of the Four Elements, and it's really a shame because these guys have some pretty cool animations, they're versatile, and they're just in general fun to use. They use key points instead of spell slots, and like the Warlock, their key points restore on short rest. One of the community's biggest problems with Four Elements Monk is that the spells cost a lot of ki, so you need to short rest often. This can be true, but like with most things in this game, there are ways to circumvent that a bit, like keeping a bard in the party or just outright long resting often, which I myself have no problem with, but I can see it getting tedious for some. Even if you do run out of ki, you're still a monk, so you hit decently hard in melee regardless. Either way, you can still get more out of each short rest than you would with a Warlock, albeit with a smaller spell selection. On top of that, silence will not stop monks from using their spells, as they have no verbal requirements. As another byproduct, their spells can't be counterspelled, and if you multi-class with Barbarian, you can even use your spells while raging, which can make for some very interesting builds to say the least. It's a super versatile class and excels at both short and long ranges, having several options for any encounter, and can be absolutely busted with several different gear combinations. It's not the best at anything per se, but it sure is a lot of fun to play with. Plus, you can literally become the avatar. Real quick, if you're still watching, please make sure to like and subscribe. It puts these videos in the algorithm and it keeps the channel alive. Sincerely, thank you. Now back to the video. Number 3. Arcane Trickster Rogue. Rogues aren't generally underrated, I would say, but the Arcane Trickster definitely gets a bad rap, and I think that's mainly because either A, people don't learn the playstyle, or B, the unique mage hand having a couple bugs. To that I say, the playstyle is very easy to learn and can be quite OP, and the mage hand is still extremely useful despite its minor shortcoming. This thing is invisible, so it can literally scout the entire map for you, as long as you avoid anything with C invisibility, of course, and can throw things for you like potions and bombs, or even move things so you can steal them, perform finishing blows on those 1 HP enemies, invisibly float to the next enemy to give the rogue a free sneak attack since it can stay out of combat, and more as you get creative with it. Depending on your perspective and skill with this subclass, you can even say the Arcane Trickster has potential to be superior to Assassin or Thief, especially if taken as a pure build, meaning no multi-classing, whereas the other two really want you to multi-class for extra attack. Even with only having access to level 1 and 2 spells, the Arcane Trickster has an incredible amount of utility and control on and off the battlefield, and there's always the option of multi-classing with a wizard, which can absolutely bust the build, as seen in my Itachi Uchiha build video. You can also take spells from the expanded wizard list when leveling, allowing for you to replace Arcane Trickster spells like Color Spray for things like Scorching Ray or Darkness. There's also the fact that at level 9, you can Magical Ambush, which gives your enemies disadvantage if you use a spell while hidden, drastically increasing your chance of success, and even if you only have level 1 and 2 spells, you can always utilize your abundance of scrolls and cast any spell with Ambush. Let's also mention those level 1 and 2 spells available to the Arcane Trickster are some of the best in the game with both utility and control. The control spells being ridiculously overpowered in their own right with spells like Hold Person, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, and even the slept on, Sleep. They even have access to some DPS spells as well, making the Arcane Trickster even more versatile, allowing more choice and freedom of expression. If you ever get made and can't sneak away or flee, you can even cast Mirror Image and Blur, or even just Blade Ward to turn yourself into a temporary tank, at least long enough to either kill your attacker or disappear into the shadows. The Arcane Trickster, in my opinion, can be far more fun to play than the other two subclasses. Definitely give this one a go next time you run a rogue. Number 2. Beastmaster Ranger. The Beastmaster gets an unfair bad rap in my opinion because nearly every summon has a unique ability that you can efficiently make use of during battle. More heads on the battlefield is always nice to have, but the animals themselves are not just meat shields, as some of them actually do some decent damage, but the true benefit to the party is their abilities. They all begin with an attack and an ability, but at level 5 and level 11, they also unlock new abilities, further increasing their viability and reliability. They get new appearances at those levels too, which is really cool. Also at level 7, all animals gain the ability to use Dash, Disengage, and Help as a bonus action. The hit points and armor class of each animal also increases as you level up, so much so that the Raven will have an insane 21 AC by level 11. One of the best animals is actually the Dire Raven, being highly mobile with flying and being able to blind enemies, which gives the party advantage against that enemy. At level 5, it also has the ability to curse enemies while dealing a decent amount of damage from range in the process, which will on top also give advantage on attack rolls against that target. At 11, the Raven can summon 2 more Ravens and also creates a cloud of darkness wherever it flies to, as it is now immune to blind as well. This little bird is crazy. Also to mention, all of your animals will deal bonus damage to enemies if they're marked with Hunter's Mark, so you should always keep using that. Arachnophobia warning. The second best animal, or perhaps even better than the Raven, the Spider is also insane. It applies poison on basic attacks, which basically makes the target be less effective in combat. It can also shoot webs, which is a crowd control AoE that halves movement speed and has a chance to completely immobilize them. This ability is extremely useful throughout the entire game, and it can also be set on fire. At level 5, the Spider can cocoon an enemy, completely preventing them from not only moving, but taking actions as well for 3 turns, which is basically a cheaper version of banishment. And at level 11, the Spider gains a ranged attack similar to the Raven that deals damage and causes the target to become infested, which deals extra piercing and poison damage each turn. The other animals are quite useful as well, like the wolf having a literal sword in his jaws for a big damage cleave attack, or the bear which can disarm and prone enemies, or allow you to summon a whole extra bear. And I haven't even mentioned the boar, but I'm gonna let you discover the rest of what Beastmaster has to offer on your own. Don't forget to have your cleric cast aid, especially at higher levels. This will make a huge difference in their durability. Number 1. Trickery Domain Cleric. The inspiration for this video and my favorite of the underrated builds, the Trickery Domain Cleric is a stealth user's best friend and becomes especially fun when multi-classed with Gloomstalker Ranger, Shadow Monk, or even Rogue and or is a part of a stealth-based party. If I'm ever gonna run a stealth party, not to be confused with my solo stealth runs, the Trickery Domain Cleric is the backbone of the group and can really make infiltrations much easier, quicker, and all around more safe. Clerics are already the best class in the game, source yours truly, so even the quote worst domain is still powerful and versatile enough to basically solo the game, and even more so if you multi-class a bit. With that being said though, it really is fun to use either way in a stealth party or just with one stealth companion in a duo, which is actually one of my personal favorite playstyles. Everyone knows what makes the Trickery Domain lackluster, so let's talk about some things that make it better when you shift your perspective. This is, in my opinion, nearly fully a support build. Along with being a cleric and having access to most of the best support in the game, the Trickery Domain has a few unique unlocks. At level 1, you have Blessing of the Trickster to give someone advantage on stealth checks. This is supremely useful until level 3, when you get Pass Without Trace, which buffs stealth by +10 for you and allies within 9 meters. This is the foundation of a stealth party, and leaves your Gloomstalker's concentration open for things like Hunter's Mark or Ensnaring Strike. The Trickery Cleric is also prepared for when stealth fails in several capacities. For defense, you have things like Mirror Image, which is a goaded spell that basically causes the next 3 attacks against you to miss. Bestow Curse is a whole animal in its own right and is an underrated spell, but you also get Fear, which is by far one of the best control spells in the game, causing enemies in a cone AoE to drop their weapons and flee, allowing for free attacks and the fact they won't have weapons anymore, essentially rendering them defenseless. You also get Polymorph, which, come on now, and Dimension Door, which is extremely useful when things go south on an honor run and you need to dip quick with your partner. Let's also mention at level 9 you unlock Dominate Person, which becomes a completely overpowered spell when you use it on a tough enemy, turning them to fight by your side. The Trickery Domain gets a bad rap and for good reason, but I do believe it to be more useful than people want to give it credit for. It's never going to win a min-max award, but it certainly is fun to RP with, and in the right hands can be quite efficient. There is most certainly things I've missed about these builds that can make them even better than I suggested, so if there's something I left out, leave a comment down below and let us know. Also comment if you think there's an underrated build you have that should be on this list. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe for all types of content, and I'm currently working on my magnum opus extensively documenting the journey of Baldur's Gate 3, so if that's something you're interested in, I'd definitely love to see you at the premiere. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, purge evil.
Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah.